The one thing you need to be aware of to know when the top is coming for Bitcoin and other crypto related assets, that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get into it. But before we get going, smash that like button, subscribe if you've been with us a while and haven't done so yet. Check out the Trade Cave store, link in the description as well as the channel bio. We have some new t-shirts on the store already here. We've got the Bull Knot flying out in space on his space walk. We've got Rocket Doge taking it to the moon. Go ahead and check those out now. Now let's get going. So you saw this at the beginning here. So this is one of the things that is going to feed into the single thing you need to know about crypto coming up here and what we are looking for going forward to indicate that the top is coming in soon, or at least the big rally is about to kick off. And that is the China stocks. They saw their biggest single day rally since 2008 as stimulus came through, and that was yesterday. Now, that stimulus is going to bring liquidity, it's going to bring volume, and that's a big hint right there, volume that we want to see to bring us higher. Now, this was recently in extreme greed. It has cooled off to greed. I'm expecting us to maybe get that back to neutral in the first two and a half weeks of October. So I think we're going to start off with October and see it end with Uptober as we go through the month here. I think we're going to get back to neutral. We're going to reset some oscillators here, some indicators, and then we're going to see this thing scream higher into the end of the month. We are also expecting to see that sort of thing come out in crypto here. So we're already back to neutral on crypto here on CoinMarketCap. You can see that we are back to 48, even though Bitcoin was screaming upwards the last couple of days here. We were definitely in extreme greed at that time, and we're now at neutral. We're back to 48, and we'll probably hang out there for a few days, maybe a week or two before we see this thing really kick off. So we're taking a look at Bitcoin right now. So this is Bitcoin here. And we have come back to test the 21-day moving average, like I said. Now, I did make a mistake before. So you know how I said the 200 was up here somewhere at like 62 or something, maybe 61. So I've been using the mid fib band here. Let me put it on there. It's the pink one. The mid fib band as my 200 because it's a 200 period middle fib band, right? And generally, if you look, generally they stay very close to each other. They don't decouple too often. Like occasionally they do decouple. And right now, so yeah, generally they're very, very close to each other, and sometimes they do decouple. Right now, for some reason, these have decoupled. This 200 period fib mid-level here, as well as the 200-day moving average, those things have diverged for now. So I was actually quoting that incorrectly for the last couple of videos here. So the 200 days actually down to 59,896. If we lose the 21-day moving average, which is currently at 62,623, we could very likely see ourselves come back down to $60,000 pretty quickly. And I would not be surprised to see that in the first 2 weeks of October, followed by a massive rally. So that is what we're looking at right now. Let me, how do I move those? Ah, can't remember. Can I make those just not visible for now? There we go. Great. Okay. So yeah, so we did our double bottom a little bit. We came up to the neckline, and it looks like we have given that all back down to the 21. Now we could rally off the 21, and we were watching for that very, very closely. But if we lose the 21, the 200-day is going to come into play here, and we will potentially come back down to $60,000 before seeing ourselves rally up. Now, if we look down at the momentum indicators here, I think that is likely to happen. Now you see the blue one's the fast one, the yellow one is the mid speed one, the yellow and the purple one are like mid speeds, and the orange one is the slow one. So the orange one is pointing up still, while the other three are pointing down. I think those other three are going to take us down on this momentum indicator here, oscillators, the stochastics. I think that will take us down to the 200, see it bounce from there, and then these three will turn back around, and the orange one will just continue on up. I think that's what we're likely to see here, kind of like what happened back here, right? Like as the orange was curling up here on September 14th, it was curling up. The other three were kind of coming down a bit, and they came down, 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 and then they started turning around, and the orange one just kept going up. And then so did the price of Bitcoin. So what is the one thing we're watching here for Bitcoin right now to see when the big move is coming through? So what are we looking for on Bitcoin to come through here in order to decide that we are going to be on the big run up here? Now, I've got a couple of things marked out here. So let's go back here to having a long past, right? all the way back here. Okay, this is in 2017 now. This would be basically equivalent to the 2025 move that we might be anticipating. Now, what is special about this little mark right here? Let's go back and let's go back. Let's zoom out a bit, and I'm going to just see that one. All right. This little, you see these volume, now it's very, very thin here, so I'm going to zoom in, but you can see here there's a volume bar. And that volume bar is larger than almost everything around it other than this one over here, but that was after the rally was over. So you can see before the rally came up, before the big part of the rally came up, we had this huge volume bar. It's significantly larger than all the others. It dwarfed all of them. So let's zoom in on that bad boy. All right, we're going to zoom in, we're going to zoom in, we're going to zoom in. Look at that big green volume bar. How much Bitcoin was that representative of? It is 60,000 Bitcoin in one day was this bar. Now, notice what happened when we got above that bar, right? We got above that bar and stayed above it. So we got above it. And so we went up, came back, tested it, came a little bit into it, and then we got above it, right? So we went up, tested, ran up further. And then from there, we never looked back. Never looked back. I don't think we ever came back to that level, did we? Yeah, we came back in the bear market. So we didn't come back until the next bear market came down to tap it. All right. Now let's go move forward to 2020. This one here, this was actually during the pandemic dip, but you can see here again we had some volume bars that significantly dwarfed all other volume bars nearby, and honestly for a very long time afterwards. And what happens once we get above that big green volume bar, which again, let me bring this down so I can see it, represented 54,000 Bitcoin. As soon as we got above it, right, we came up, came back to test it, and then we never looked back. All right. And then that led into the halving, which came a few months later. And then after that, it was just to the moon. Now, where's the next one? The next one you can see here. All right, there we go. Right here on January 29th, 2021. We have a nice big green volume bar, significantly larger than anything around it and significantly larger than anything that came after. And let's go ahead and look at that real quick. How many was that? That was 31,000 Bitcoin in this little doji candle here. And what happened here? So we did a bit of a blow off there, bit of a blow off. It came back to test it the next day, went dipped into it, got above it. And then once it got above it, we didn't look back until May 2021 when that manipulated part of the cycle came through. So we just launched, found a top that was very close to the actual peak, and then carried on downward again. We never saw another volume spike like that again, but that was the signal that it was on. So right now, if we come out here and we look now, so since the halving, we haven't really seen much in terms of a big volume spike. I mean, look at, let me get this. Look at all this kind of awful volume here. Look at how much bigger the volume was back here in 2020 compared to now. We're seeing now the volume is like half or less than what it was on average in 2020. I mean, you can see right here, it was on this blue line. You can see it's significantly higher than it is now and has been for a long time. The volume's been down and honestly suppressed since 2020, since later in 2021, and it has remained pretty low. So we are looking now for a big volume spike. Then we're looking for a retest of that volume spike area, and then that is when I am going to expect a full-on launch. And we have not gotten that. We got a big sell-off spike, but look, even our biggest volume day, which was here August 5th, even our biggest volume day on August 5th, that big sell volume, look at that. It barely, if you look to the left of the screen and you can see the dotted line, it barely reaches around the average volume that we were seeing in pretty much all of 2020, even earlier than that, like pretty much all the volume in the past, right? Let me see. Let me bring that in. Yeah. And the volume's just been getting lower, right? All the volume in the past, like the only time we've seen volume that low was during the winters. And that happened on August 5th. And that volume is barely scratching the surface of what we would normally see in a winter. Right? So our volume has been significantly low. It's been super low. The volume hasn't come through. And look where our price is. Wait till that volume comes through. That money supply, that M2 hits us. And then I think we're going to see a big volume spike. We may or may not see a retest of the area, the price value where that spike occurs. And then it is just printing money for days from there on out on Bitcoin. So that's what we're currently looking for on this channel right now. I'm looking for that big volume spike, then a retest of that area, that price action, and then from there a launch. And that is the single thing I'm looking for right now to indicate that Bitcoin is about to do its big mega run. Okay, one last thing I want to talk about today is our Disney play. So our Disney play worked out actually really, really well. If you got in anywhere around this, like the 5 day moving average, which I did, I got in at the 5 day moving average. I rode it up to about 95, got out. It was a 30-40% win for me there. It went right up to my target and failed. So that's cool. I like that. I like to see that it did that. So I got out before my target. I jumped off on the way up, let it hit my target, and then it's starting to come down. Now I'm looking for a reset here potentially. Going into October, I'm looking for later in October a reset. Here, we might hit the 21 this time. So I'm waiting potentially down to, so preferably I'd get back in again around like 93.30, 93.20, somewhere like that, maybe 93.25. I'd be looking for that. I'd be looking for a stop loss on this about 92.12. And I'd be looking for the same target area. I'd be looking for it to come up to about 96, 95, maybe $97. This time, if it breaks through that successfully, then I'd be looking for $100. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 1 hour real quick. What are we seeing on here? So on the 1 hour, I was thinking it was going to scoop, but we dropped, right? We dropped pretty hard on that. Now, do I have a 200 on this? Let's take a look. Let me bring up the 200. Okay, so the 200, yeah, it's down near that stop loss area on the hourly that I would be expecting. So that's pretty cool. It's interesting to see. I'd like to see it come back to this area, test this white line, which by the time it does that, I expect this 200 to be around that area. And then I'd like to see it bounce. And if I get that bounce and it close up above this white line, then I would be looking for it to return to $96. And now, why am I playing Disney, do you ask? So I am playing Disney versus some of the other high risk stuff that I do because Disney is a legacy brand. Okay, it's a legacy brand. When legacy brands get cheap, value investors tend to buy them. Doesn't really matter what's going on with the underlying company as long as it's not, it's not completely on fire, which Disney's, some would argue it is, some would argue it's not, but value investors see Disney come down to the, low 90s, mid 80s, sometimes high 70s, that one time that we got down to 78. And they see dollar signs because it is a legacy brand. It will likely continue to make money. It's not going to implode tomorrow. And you could probably ride it up, 10, 15, 20% from those lows. And that is what happens. Here you see it runs up and it really catches, so it comes down to 78. Then you get some institutional buyers down here buying in, buying in, buying in. They buy in a bit heavy to excite the retail. Then the retail takes over and it kind of dips down a little bit because institutions aren't buying so much. But then it hits like a 200 or something, and then retail really gets lit up for that last jump up, and then those institutional sellers, those big sellers, those value investors, then they start selling off around like 120. After they got their, what is that? After they got their, let's say they started buying here after they got their 46% in like three months or so, then they're like, okay, it's time to sell, and then you get that big drop off again, and now there looks like that might be a time where they're starting to reload. And we could see this turn into a head and shoulders right now. So we had an inverted head and shoulders. It kind of finished. Preferably, it would have come all the way back up to 110. But it might. But right now we are seeing a potential that, if I can talk potential, head and shoulders would come down. Up there's a shoulder, head. The other shoulder would hit the 21, come back to 96, 97, maybe only like mid 95s, and then we would see it come back down to about $87, and that would be a head and shoulders going this way. And then that's an area where you may see some of those value investors reloading on Disney. But I am watching this right now for another swing up. I'm looking for it to come to the 200 on the hourly and then start turning around, start curling up. And from there, we get back above that 93.25 area and start closing candles above it. I would be looking for a move again up to the high 95s to the 96, and then I'd jump off again and wait for it to get above the 200-day moving average. And then once it's above the 200-day moving average, I'm looking for a move to 100, perhaps even 110 or higher on Disney. So that's what I'm doing with that right now. Anyways, that's all I've got for you today. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this video. Check out the Trade Cave store, link in the description, as well as the channel bio, and have a profitable day.